Good evening, everybody.
I should do my own introduction.
You should do your own introduction. Over to you, Shira. Welcome to While the Chicken Soup is Cooking. That's the title that we've got. Is that really the best title we've come up? Is anyone's chicken soup actually cooking?
No, it's been cooked.
It's been cooked already. Well, welcome to the While the Chicken Soup is Cooked show.
The chicken soup is cooked.
Half an hour of a catch up because it's been a busy week for us. I'm sure it's been a busy week for you guys. So come join us on Zoom if you haven't already. The party's just getting started. We've got a cracking crowd tonight. So give us a shout, guys. Who's out there tonight? Who's going to say hello first?
I'm not shy. I'll say hello.
Thank you. You're live to the nation, Lawrence. So you know.
I know. Shouldn't have told you that.
What is your message for the week? What have you learned this week that you didn't know last week?
Well, that's a very good question. I do like to learn something new every week, and I do that by various ways. Mainly by reading. I read different books, etc. I am reading a very interesting book which was written in 1984, and it's all about people's experiences in the Second World War, and they were all interviewed 40 years after the war finished.
Wow.
And it was fascinating, and I learned a lot about normal, ordinary Americans who were either civilians and worked in America itself, or were in the forces. Taught a lot of people who were Afro-Americans who suffered racism that you wouldn't believe, although they were fighting for their country. It was horrendous. In fact, on one army base, while they were training these troops, the white soldiers came in and shot them dead. And it was covered up, absolutely covered up. And you think to yourself, what has changed? What has changed in all those years? And I would say a lot has changed. Although those things happened within our lifetime, and it's real history from our lifetime, but things, believe it or not, have improved. Not perfect. And believe me, people are still anti-Semitic, that is a given. But most people have moved on so much more. And the younger generation, your generation, my children's generation, and my grandchildren's generation, understand that racism is so stupid.
Mm-hmm.
And so, how can I put it? When I talk to them about what happened before the Second World War, during the Second World War, they look at me like mad. Why were people doing that? And again, as I say, from reading this book, you read it and you think, but this is only a few years ago. Why? It's so stupid. So if you ask me what I've learned that people are stupid. But not everyone. No, just, we haven't. Why spend time being anti somebody or because of colour or race or whatever? Why spend the energy being racist? I mean, we haven't got time for it. Let's just get on with it.
There's. I remember hearing several years ago the concept that we should try and be more like children. You see, we all think that we grow up and we all get our ideas in our heads. And we become very difficult to shift on our opinions and our prejudices, etc. And actually, if you consider how children are able to be tolerant of people of all backgrounds, whoever they are, and they will go and play and schmooze and talk and spend time with anybody, and then you consider how rigid we become as adults, and we think, well, we're more mature, this is the much better approach. And actually, to be more like a child in this instance would actually make the world a bit of a better place. A lot of a better place, in fact. And when you consider how children are able to move on from conflict so quickly and forgive and forget and become friends again after a fight, and then you think about how families and friendships can get torn apart because we think, well, I was right and they were wrong, and so we'll throw everything out in order to preserve our opinions. It's
My mother, we always said my mother, the last thing to go would be the grudge.
yeah.
It's very true.
Well, there we go. Something from Lawrence already. Pardon me? That's true. No, very much so. Very much so. We've now got a life lesson for those of us that needed that little bit of boost and that little bit of inspiration. We've got that. Thanks to you. Thanks to you. So thank you very much for sharing. Who's going to chime in next? Who have we got? We've got the Shapiros. Give us a wave. Hello, hello, hello. You may have been wondering what you tuned into over there. So we'd asked the question what Lawrence had learnt in the last week that he didn't know before. So that's where that was coming from. I'm happy for anyone else to share anything that they've learnt this week that they didn't know before. Good evening, Lawrence, as well. We've got Rosemary hiding in the background, Sarah's hiding in the background, Stuart's hiding in the foreground. The Davises and Wendy. Hello, Wendy. How's everyone at your end?
Yeah, we're fine. I'm working on a very interesting task this morning. My daughter-in-law asked me to find pictures of Lee as a child growing up. So I'm going through all our childhood pictures that we've got of everyone, and it's quite amazing. It brings back some very, very nice memories.
If you ask my mum the same question, she'll find pictures of your Greg.
Yes, probably.
In my childhood photos.
Yes.
In fact, we've probably got all of the class pictures left over from our time at Sinai.
I haven't got as far as Sinai yet.
Oh, very nice. Has he got a birthday coming up or something?
Yes, he has.
Well,
so I'm going to try and I've got to be done tonight, otherwise it's going to be too late.
Let's hope he's not watching now, otherwise it's going to ruin the surprise.
I saw Greg on the news tonight.
Oh yeah.
He's working on Brexit at the moment, and I thought he was behind Michelle Barnier. So I phoned various members of the family and said, watch the news on like ITV+1. And then I spoke to Greg, and it wasn't him.
Oh. But at least they watched the news.
Yeah.
Do you guys remember when Brexit was a thing?
It's becoming more of a thing
It's
now.
becoming more of a thing.
Still coming.
When that was the biggest concern.
Yeah, absolutely.
How I missed an election? We haven't had an election for almost 3 weeks.
Oh gosh. And how are the Peters doing?
Yeah, we're all right. We're okay.
Tell you what we learned this week. We've got less in the bank than we thought we had.
Oh.
That's a harsh lesson.
Oh.
I started to, I'm trying to work on a family tree, and it's very hard because most of my family died in the Shoah, so there were very few documents. But I've discovered I've got twice or 3 times removed cousins somewhere in the world. I haven't discovered exactly where they are, but we discovered how we are related through my great-great-grandmother. And I don't know how they found all this information because I couldn't find anything, so I'm just relying on all of them. But the thing is, it takes hours. Once I start on it, I'm stuck on it all day long.
It's like Pringles. Once you pop, you can't stop.
Absolutely, it's terrible. And that's just my family. I haven't even started on Anna's family, which is that's even that's a difficult task as well. So,
Are you signed up to these ancestry websites?
On all of them. But when you've got people where the papers aren't available, it's very, very hard. Yeah. But finding bits and pieces, we'll get some. Our grandchildren are very interested, so I'm doing it for them.
Well, speaking from my own experience, it's sorry, go on.
I was going to say it's interesting talking about things like prejudice and racial prejudice. We both read the book Becoming by Michelle Obama, which is an excellent read. And again, excuse me, she talks about prejudice as a young girl, as a young black girl, and in fact through her career. And it's really wonderful reading, very interesting reading, and how stupid futile. In fact, almost quoting from Koheles, how futile it is.
Hevel Havalim.
It's a very interesting read. She writes about how stories were made up about her husband. All the stories were made up about him being Muslim and being brought up here and there and everywhere. She said none of it was true.
He's Irish. Obama.
Very, very good. I mean, going back to what Kathy was saying just before about the family tree and how your grandkids are interested. I mean, I know from my own time now that we know so little about my mum's side of the family, my dad's side of the family. I say we know very little. Actually, on my mum's side, there's a cousin in Israel who has just wiped the floor with it, really. I mean, she has tracked down generations, left, right, and centre on my mum's side. And actually, when was I in Poland? Seems like a lifetime ago. Remember when we could travel? When we were in Poland. David, when were we in Poland? Was it last November?
Yes.
I don't know if he's there. So I think it was last November, and we were in Łódź, and my parents called me to say, "Did you know that Mum's side of the family is from Łódź?" And while I was there, Richard Gilbert, who was on the trip as well, recommended a website. I can't remember what it is, but it's like a Jewish heritage index of Polish records. And so I started playing around with this. And as Kathy was saying before, once you start, you don't stop. And I was on it till like 1 or 2 o'clock in the morning. But during that time, I managed to find the home addresses of both sets of great-grandparents. I think it was my grandpa's grandparents. I managed to find the home addresses of. And they were around the corner from the hotel. So the following morning, while the group was getting ready to go to the cemetery in Łódź, I jumped in a taxi and went and took pictures outside these apartment buildings. So I can't think of the link now, but maybe I'll try and look it up in a minute. But it's worth checking out this index because it's got thousands and thousands of records. And now that the Polish government are trying to archive and digitize everything, so they've got people working around the clock basically, digitizing Polish censuses. Well, I'm asking you, you're Sephardi. Yeah. But yes, kind of. It's worth checking it out because I don't know exactly how far it goes. There's probably Ukrainian records on there, and actually David Menashe, who's hiding there in the background, he lent us. Gave us a history book that ended up revealing loads of information about Shira's family from India. So that's a worthwhile book to check out, The Jews of Bombay, because that's got amazing insights into the Indian Sephardi Jewish community. So quick thank you to David over there, hiding.
I had a call a few weeks ago from a third cousin, twice removed, to tell me he'd been digging into the family tree on my father's side, and he actually sent me a chart of the structure that he'd got so far. And I learned from him that my great-great-grandfather, I think in Lithuania, I can't remember exactly where, was called Shlomo Dobbin. And my name is Stuart David. So I learned that my great-great-grandfather, I am named after him. So that's been tracked through the ages. So, it's amazing what you learn from these things, and you've got to have a lot of patience to get into these details. It does take hours and hours. And we once had Richard Gilbert giving a talk at Sage on how he delved into the family tree. I think it's taken him about 20 years or something, doing a bit at a time. But he's visited family plots when I think they went to Poland and in Washington, somewhere in the States, part of his family. It's amazing what you can find these days. By the different methods that are available to you in technology today. It makes it that much easier.
Where do your family come from?
Mine, back in, I think it's Lithuania, back there somewhere in the distant past. I'd have to go back into the family tree to have another look.
Do you think you'll ever go and visit these towns where they might have come from?
I think not somehow.
We we went to Hungary, to the village where my mother grew up, and we actually found the house where she lived. It's not the same house anymore, but it was the last one in the village, and it's still there. And we went up, so we found that my mother always said there was a Jewish cemetery in the village, and we found it. It was behind the Catholic cemetery, and somebody put us in touch with the mayor of the village, who came and met us, but he couldn't take us to the cemetery because it was overgrown with bracken and everything else. But he said every winter he hires some unemployed young men to clear it. And I got an email from him just as we went into lockdown to say that he'd cleared it and he was looking for our family names, but he hadn't found them yet. But it's amazing what you can do.
It's incredible.
I had a story quite. So I'm related to Rabbi Selaznik.
Ah. Well, let's give him a shout out as well, just in case he's watching.
Did he tell you that?
Yeah, no, that I knew. I've got pictures from childhood. So I was trying to find out about my grandmother, my father's mother and aunt, who we never knew what happened to them. It was from Poland. And many years later, he found the pages of testimony from Yad Vashem. And I thought, oh my God, who's recorded that? I wanted to do that. I took the pages many years ago. I couldn't. Lives in Israel. I said, ring this person up. She did. He passed on, spoke to his wife, and she explained that they recorded all the names of the people that lived in Juramin, which is the town they came from. There's a cemetery in Israel, in Holon, which has all the every single village memorials to every village in the whole of Europe, and it goes on for avenues upon
Over
avenues.
2,000 memorials.
And
The lost communities, one, is it attached to Yad Vashem?
No, it's in
Holon.
It's in Holon.
Another one.
It's where every single town, every single village, there is a memorial. And my niece and I, when we went to Israel, we went there. And it was so moving. For the first time, I found the stone of Juramin with all the names of the people that died. And on it was recorded my aunt's name and my grandmother's name. And I never knew these things existed. This led me on, I'll try and be brief. This led me on to another man who lives in New York. And we were going to New York. He was involved with keeping everybody from Juramin in contact. There's a society of Juraminers. And we met him, and he knew my father. And he showed me pictures of the house that my father lived in, of Juramin. And I was meant to go there. They were rededicating the cemetery, because of course all the cemeteries were destroyed. And they were building a wall with the name of the people that had passed away from the town. And unfortunately, my daughter was living with me at that time, and she was about to have a baby, and I couldn't go. But they intend to put a memorial stone on the site of the synagogue. And when they do that, I'm hoping to get to that town to see it. But it has opened up a whole, this man has passed away, but I'm very close friends with his daughter now in New York. I was just talking to her at the weekend. And they wrote a book as well about the town, which is full of information about how they lived before the war, photographs of my grandmother and my aunt. And it was just amazing finding all this out.
Amazing.
You know, grandchildren and great-grandchildren, they will be so grateful if we're all able to record the stories of our families and the family trees, because otherwise there comes a time where people will want to know as much as they can about their family. And thank God, as we've been saying, the records now are so much easier to navigate. But it's so critical for us to have access to that information. I'm desperate to know more about our family tree. I know little snippets, but everything else is hidden behind subscriptions on my heritage sites and all this kind of thing. We've apparently got parallel family in America.
They were in touch with you, no?
They were in touch.
Facebook.
They were in touch with cousins, but
Right.
I've never personally been in touch, and I've never personally seen the full family tree.
When our grandsons went to Auschwitz in school, they looked up their great-great-grandparents' names, and they found them. And they actually found some information about my grandmother, which, thank God, as I said, my mother didn't know, because it actually said they don't know what happened to her. Her name was there, but it didn't record what had happened to her. My mother had always assumed that she had died in the camps, which it confirmed with my grandfather, but not my grandmother. So I said, in a way, I'm very pleased she didn't know that, because she had this vision that they died together, roughly the same time. But the boys looked it up, it's all in the Auschwitz records.
The scary thing is, and I'm not looking to get too Holocausty here for a Thursday night, but it was Rabbi Shlomo Farhi, I think, on one of the Poland trips that I did, who walked through the tunnel when we were in Łódź as well, and he decided to write down just 10 names of surnames that he had never heard of before. And the point that he wanted to bring out was all of the family names that are just now lost forever. And if we don't recognize a surname, it once existed as a Jewish family and it no longer does. And granted, names have changed over the decades, but it was still quite a poignant point. Lawrence, you've been quite not you, Lawrence Golan.
Okay.
We've heard nothing yet.
There is a wealth of information also at Parshat on some of these small communities, and they've got a reasonable amount which is online as well.
There we go.
So,
how do we access that? Just look on Google for Beit Parshat, was it?
Yeah. I think it's on their main site. So the main site. There's a whole database that you can then access as well. And I think they also do. I know on Monday, I get a newsletter from the organisation called AACI in Latania, and I know they've got a virtual tour of the museum on Zoom on Monday afternoon.
That's really cool.
And that's coming up next week.
This is Monday the 26th. I think if you went onto the AACI Latania website, you'll find a link to it.
Oh, thank you very much. Look at that. A timely plug. If I can offer another timely plug, especially with Stuart here, if you're interested in virtual tours, Sage did the Hidden Covent Garden a couple of weeks ago. I watched that back on YouTube yesterday while I was doing my ironing, and that was very, very good. So a nice cup by you, Stuart.
I saw that and I thought that sounded really interesting, but I couldn't make it. Are you saying that it's been recorded?
Oh yes, sir. It's on the Bushy Shaw YouTube channel.
Wow. All our Tuesday sessions are recorded. The odd one or two aren't, so you can always go back and look. And Covent Garden was amazing. I always thought all the entertainers that you see in Covent Garden just turn up and stand on their soapbox and get on with it. No, they have to go to rehearsals and have appointments made, and then I also didn't know that Punch and Judy that there's a Punch and Judy fair every May in Covent Garden. So we learned a lot. It's go and have a look at it. Very interesting tour for an hour around Covent Garden.
And I'll tell you something that I learned from it, which you may think that I should have known, but I didn't know that churches are built to face east.
Yes, that was interesting, wasn't it?
I did not know that.
I didn't know that either.
And apparently that's so that they also face Jerusalem.
Yeah.
But, we got there first.
We did it first.
Okay, well, it's only the Davises and the Shapiros now that haven't wished us all a good evening. So who's gonna say hello next?
You'll say hello.
Hello.
Hi.
So, sorry.
You want to go first?
No, you go ahead.
I'll go ahead. We're just talking about ancestry. I was being the youngest of all the cousins. It didn't make it any easier for me to try and track down all the family, because every time the kids had school projects. They always had, we're doing a family tree. Can we have your family tree? And all I could say was your grandparents' names were, and your on both sides. And it's not an easy thing to track. I've tried on the ancestry sites because my grandmother was sent from Lithuania by her mother to family who'd arrived in South Africa. Must have been with just after the 1820 settlers, because she was sent. They had a farm in the Free State, and she was sent as a 10-year-old girl from Lithuania to live with the family because her mother couldn't keep her anymore for some reason. Nobody knows why. In the Free State, and she grew up in South Africa. And my grandfather had left also Lithuania on the boat to America, and they got off in Dublin, and they were told they were in America. So he went in Ireland, and then he made his way to the South Africa where things were better, where he met my grandmother. But nobody knows anything further about their backgrounds.
Wow.
So it's like one of these things, like Simon's family managed to track down now, go back 3 or 4 generations, and it's just impossible. I can't find even my father's side from the Isle of Man. It's not an easy thing to track down.
As you go up to the generation where you do know information, do you know of siblings that may have ended up in other places?
I know that one of my father's aunties, at one point she died in America, and we got this inheritance that she'd left to, because she didn't have children, so she'd left to her siblings' children. So we got, I think it was £7. We were so excited. It was like $1 million. Oh, I thought it was the farm. We didn't get the farm.
The farm in the bottom of that little island called Manhattan.
It's already listed, it's we've always been very interested because we've never been able to track down any families.
Well, if you were ever able to find documents of other names or any information at all, I just remembered one part of my story, which was that I can't read Polish, especially not Polish in lovely calligraphic handwriting from way back when. So there are Facebook groups, genealogy Facebook groups, where you can just chuck these pictures out and chuck these documents out, and people translate it, and people translated it within minutes for me when I needed these street names. So you might find that you'll end up connecting potentially with family or people from the same town, or people that might give you like a little snippet of the story in ways that you could never imagine just from these Facebook groups. It's amazing.
In connection with this, but no relation to me, my mother, during the war, she was a civil servant. She worked in the post office, but she loved to collected stamps with her brother, who was an invalid, and she collected coins from all over the world. So every time a sailor or a airman, whatever, soldier came into the post office and they paid, she should say, "I don't have any spare coins from your country or where you've been posted." And she had this little tin box with all these coins in. So a few months ago, I decided, I should maybe just go through it and see what's in it. Maybe there's some coins that are worth something. Maybe let's just sell them, auctions. There must be sites with all these coins. So I found this one coin, and it had like the one in Magendorfer on. It had, on the one side, had a Magendorfer. Now, West Africa had Magendorfers on the one side of their coin. It was a coin with a hole, and around the hole is a Magendorfer. So, but on the other side of the coin, instead of having the country or the currency on it, the amount on it had been filed down, and there was stamped on it a number and like a name. So I went through. I just Googled the number, the letter and the number, and I found out that it belonged to a sailor from Australia who was obviously like his coin. He got the coin in a country in West Africa, and then they'd sanded down the ones, filed down the one side, and then stamped his army number, his dog tag number on, and his initials and his surname. And then I was thinking, well, should I try and track down his family in Australia and tell them I've got this coin of his, you know? It's an amazing thing going through this box. Yeah.
Unbelievable. What's the significance of the Magen David?
West Africa.
I think it's just a symbol.
Just a symbol.
It's not a unique symbol. I mean, we kind of, it's like, I think the swastika also isn't a unique symbol.
Greece.
Yeah.
India.
Wow.
The swastika was used, or is used still in Indonesia, but it goes round in the opposite direction, the style.
And also Greek pottery had the same.
Yeah. Ancient Greek
pottery.
We saw it in the museum.
Yeah.
Well, you've given me some homework now to look into this Star of David on the West African coins. I'm interested in that.
West Africa.
That's piqued my curiosity.
But as you go back in your family tree, you find these very odd branches. So it turns out that one of the odd branches that isn't directly in my life,
It's not us.
not us, the one part were underground communists who eventually joined the Red Army. And they lost a lot of people in the war as well, but one of them became a KGB agent. And on the side of the family, they've still got relatives who still live in Vilnius in Lithuania. So it's just like this big circle of these very odd things. You could almost write a novel about how this Jewish family came to land up. Not Jewish by the time they got to be KGB agents, but you never know.
Mm-hmm. Think of all the stories there. Fascinating. Well, it's interesting how this evening has ended up us talking about dispersed people, given that the end of this week's Parshat talks about the Tower of Babel, and how we're taught that as a result of everyone's efforts there to build this enormous tower, and God decides to instead confuse them by changing all of their languages and spreading them out all across the world. So I'd like to think there's some kind of
connection,
albeit tenuous connection, to this week's Parsha. But perhaps we'll leave off with just one small message from this week's Parsha. We're taught at the beginning of Parshat Noach, which, as we know, is all about the flood. Your homework is to tell me how long they stayed on the ark for. We'll come to it in a minute. Anyway, so it says at the beginning of this week's Sedra that the earth had become corrupt and the earth had become filled with robbery, with Hamas. There's no coincidence there necessarily, but Hamas is a word that in Hebrew means corruption and robbery. And what's very interesting is as follows: a lovely idea which we'll finish the recording on. Of course, we'll stay for the after party, but the recording will finish with this idea, which is that there's three types of thievery, of robbery in Judaism. The first is for a person who steals during the day, on which we're taught that a person who steals during the day is clearly afraid of other people catching him, but isn't afraid of what Hashem or what God thinks of him. The second type is somebody who steals at night. Let me try that one again. The first one is someone who, I'm sorry, I'll read that again. The first is someone who steals at night. Someone who steals at night is afraid of other people catching him, but is not afraid of God. The second is someone who steals during the day, which demonstrates that he's afraid of people and he's not afraid of people and is not afraid of God. Now we're getting the hang of it, right? The third one, which is Hamas, is the concept of stealing something which is so small that halachically you wouldn't be penalized for having done it. You wouldn't be punished for having done it. There's a minimum amount in halacha that you have to steal before meeting a threshold of being punished for it. So if a person was to steal less than that, it's a terrible thing because you're stealing. But you wouldn't be penalized in the legal system for it, which meant that they were living at a time, the society was such that people would just steal little bits left, right, and center. Before you know it, everyone, to take, for example, of a shopkeeper selling fruit. So one guy steals a grape, it's too small, no penalty. Another guy steals a grape, another guy steals a grape. Before you know it, the guy's got no grapes left. So there was this attitude that was prevalent of corruption, of being able to steal things, and of such insignificant value that cumulatively it had a great impact, but individually people felt like they were above the law, and that was deemed as a decaying part to the fabric of society that Hashem needed to rectify it with the flood. Now I'll tell you why this is an inspirational point, because what we learn from here is that if these tiny little acts of cruelty and these tiny little acts of selfishness and tiny little acts of corruption and thievery could bring about destruction in the world, then on the flip side, the tiny little acts of kindness and the tiny little acts of goodness and the little things that we do and the little details that we pay attention to enrich the lives of others, that has the ability to build the world, restore the world, to make the world a better place. And we see this in our own lives, really, don't we? It's not always about the grand gestures. It's not always about the diamond rings, Shira. Yeah, it's about the little things as well. It's about the little things. As the line goes in Evan Almighty, the film that brought the story of Noach to life, of course, mentions there at the end, it's about the acts of random kindness, which spells the first letters, everybody, ark. Beautiful. So there we go. Lovely, inspiring message to take us into our delicious chicken soup. So that's all we've got time for on the recording, but do come and join us for the after party on Zoom. In the meantime, oh dear, we've just realized that the recording has not worked on YouTube. So we'll take the one from Zoom instead. We wish you all a Shabbat Shalom, a wonderful and meaningful weekend. We're going to stop the recording here, but you guys, you'll carry on all night. There we go. Josie, what's the story? Martin, anything?
Yeah, well, you didn't give us the answer. It was over a year, wasn't it?
Oh, well, yeah, there we go. We're all tempted to think that they were on the ark for 40 days and 40 nights. That's only how long it rained for. If we look at the timeline and pay attention to the details, they were on the ark for a whole year. So there we go. Pardon me?
It's like lockdown.
Just like lockdown.
Yeah.
100%. There's a famous Hasidic idea that the relevance of the ark in every generation is the bubble that we create for ourselves. We all live in our own homes. We all set our own boundaries. We all set our own safeguards. We all set our own filters, and that becomes our ark. Our homes are our arks. Our arks. What a terrible sentence. But yeah, it is like lockdown. We've all had the opportunity to think during lockdown about what we let in and what we let out, and it's an idea that's been taught for many years, certainly in Hasidic thought. But there we are.
Thank you very much indeed. Shabbat Shalom.
Thank you. Shabbat Shalom.
So lovely to see you all, and we'll see you all again soon. And I'll do a little plug. I'm not afraid to. Josie will back me up on this. Lunch and Learn, 12 o'clock on Thursdays. It's a wonderful opportunity.
And if you want to leave at any point, the good thing about being on Zoom is you can just pretend that your computer shut down or something.
Turn the camera off, turn the microphone off. I never know. To be honest, I may have just been talking to myself for the last 7 months.
I was listening.
Very good.
Didn't go on camera, so I couldn't answer your questions, Nick, but you've got a lot of research and I'm trying to do some of it as well.
Oh, there we go. Yeah, I've still got to write the cousins that message. Take care, everyone.
Good to see you.
Love you, Mum. Love you all. Shabbat shalom. Take care.
Shabbat shalom.
Yeah, all being well.